The massive chamber on Centauri Prime buzzed with tension. 847 different alien species filled the seats that rose in perfect circles around the central speaking platform. The air recyclers worked overtime to manage the mix of atmospheres needed for so many different life forms. Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood at the center podium, her small human frame dwarfed by the towering aliens around her. She wore the simple blue uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps, a stark contrast to the elaborate robes and mechanical suits worn by the other ambassadors. High Counselor Thrix of the Krex Empire rose from his seat. His red scales gleamed under the chamber lights as his forearms gestured dramatically. "The human problem has grown beyond acceptable limits," he declared, his voice booming through the translation systems. "Their expansion threatens the stability of our galaxy." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. The Talani Federation's representative, a pale creature with 6 eyes, nodded enthusiastically. Even the ancient Vorth collective, being so old they communicated through crystalline structures, pulsed with approval. Elena remained calm, her hands clasped behind her back. She had expected this moment. Earth's intelligence services had been tracking the growing anti-human sentiment for months. What surprised her was how unified the opposition had become. "In the past 50 years, Thrix continued, humans have established colonies on over 200 worlds. They settle on planets we consider uninhabitable. They multiply at rates that alarm our population specialists. Most concerning, their technology advances at a pace that threatens to destabilize established galactic order." The Vorth Collective's crystal speaker chimed, its musical tones translated into words. "The humans develop quantum tunneling drives without proper testing periods. They terraform worlds in decades instead of centuries. They ignore established protocols for technological advancement." Elena finally spoke, her voice steady and clear. "Honored counselors, humanity has followed all established laws regarding colonization and technological development. We have submitted every required report and passed every safety inspection. Following the letter of the law is not the same as following its spirit," snapped the Talani representative. "Your species shows no restraint, no proper respect for the wisdom of established civilizations." More voices joined the chorus of complaints. The humans were too aggressive, too adaptable, too quick to find solutions where others saw problems. They questioned established methods and found new ways to do things that had been done the same way for thousands of years. Elena listened to each accusation without interruption. She had heard them all before in smaller meetings and private conversations. But hearing them all together, spoken with such unified purpose, told her everything she needed to know about what was coming next. High Counselor Thrix raised his primary arms for silence. The chamber quieted immediately. "Therefore," he announced, "the Galactic Council presents humanity with the following requirements for continued membership." Elena's expression didn't change, but her heart began to race. She knew this moment would define humanity's future in the galaxy. First, Thrix declared, all human technological development must be subject to Council oversight. No new technologies may be implemented without approval from the Technology Assessment Board. The second requirement was even worse. All human colony worlds must accept permanent Council monitoring stations. These will ensure compliance with population and resource management guidelines. The third requirement made Elena's stomach clench. Human colonial expansion is hereby limited to no more than 5 new settlements per standard galactic year, and only on worlds pre-approved by the Colonial Assessment Committee. The fourth requirement was the most insulting. All human military vessels must be reduced by 75%. The remaining ships will operate under Joint Human Council Command. Elena stood in silence as the final requirement was read. Human educational systems must incorporate mandatory courses on proper galactic citizenship and respect for established interstellar law. The chamber erupted in approving sounds from dozens of different species. Clicks, chirps, harmonic tones, and mechanical buzzes filled the air as the aliens celebrated what they clearly saw as necessary measures. Thrix waited for the noise to die down before continuing. These requirements are not negotiable. They are the minimum acceptable terms for humanity's continued participation in galactic civilization. Elena finally raised her hand. The gesture looked small and insignificant in the vast chamber, but it commanded immediate attention. And if humanity rejects these terms? The question hung in the air like a threat. Several alien ambassadors shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Then humanity will be expelled from the Galactic Council, Thrix replied without hesitation. All trade agreements will be terminated. All protection under galactic law will be withdrawn. Your species will face the galaxy alone. The threat was clear. No species had ever survived outside the protection of the Galactic Council. The galaxy was vast and dangerous, filled with pirates, hostile environments, and unknown threats. The Council provided safety, trade, and technological exchange that made civilization possible. Elena nodded slowly. I see. And how long does humanity have to consider these terms? 72 standard hours, announced the Talani representative. More than generous for such a straightforward decision. Elena almost smiled at that. The aliens clearly believed this was an easy choice. Accept the restrictions and remain part of galactic civilization, or reject them and face certain destruction in the dark spaces between stars. Very well, Elena said formally. I will relay these terms to Earth's government immediately. Humanity will provide our answer within the required time frame. As she turned to leave the podium, Elena could hear the aliens already discussing the aftermath. The Krex Empire was interested in several human mining worlds. The Talani Federation wanted access to human agricultural techniques. The Vorth Collective spoke of studying human adaptability in controlled conditions. They were already dividing up human territory like it was their right. Like humanity had no choice but to submit or die. Elena walked through the corridors of the council building with measured steps. Her diplomatic training kept her expression neutral, but inside her mind was racing. She thought about her daughter Maria, studying xenobiology on New Geneva. She thought about the millions of humans living on worlds these aliens considered worthless. She thought about the ships being built in secret shipyards, the technologies being developed away from alien eyes, the preparations that had been made for exactly this moment. Earth's leaders had always known this day might come. Humanity's rapid expansion and technological progress had made other species nervous from the very beginning. The question wasn't whether the aliens would eventually try to limit human growth, but when and how severely. As Elena reached her private communication chamber, she allowed herself a small smile. The aliens thought they held all the cards. They believed humanity would have no choice but to accept whatever terms were offered. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Elena activated the quantum communication array and waited for the connection to Earth. In 72 hours, she would return to this chamber with humanity's answer. But she already knew what that answer would be. The aliens wanted humanity to choose between submission and isolation. What they didn't understand was that humanity had already chosen a third option, one that would change the galaxy forever. The communication array chimed, indicating a secure connection to Earth. Elena took a deep breath and began to speak. President Sarah Chen stood before the Global Parliament in Geneva, her face grave as she read the Council's demands. The massive hall was packed with representatives from every human world, their faces growing darker with each requirement. Technological oversight, Senator Marcus Webb from New Tokyo muttered loud enough for others to hear. They want to control every invention, every improvement we make. Monitoring stations on our worlds, added Representative Lisa Park from Kepler Colony. Permanent alien watchers making sure we don't grow too fast or think too much. President Chen continued reading the full list of demands. When she finished, the hall erupted in angry voices. Representatives shouted over each other, their words mixing into a roar of frustration and indignation. Quiet! Admiral Marcus Torres stood up from his seat in the military section. His voice cut through the noise like a blade. Before we react with emotion, we need to hear the full briefing. The hall gradually settled. Admiral Torres was respected by everyone present. He had commanded the colonial fleet for 15 years and had never lost a ship or failed a mission. President Chen nodded to the admiral. Thank you, Marcus. Before we debate our response, I need to share some classified information with this assembly. She activated the main display screen. Images appeared showing space construction projects, fleet movements, and detailed star charts. For the past 20 years, Earth intelligence has been monitoring alien activities in our territory. What we discovered is troubling. The first image showed Krex Empire scout ships near human mining colonies. Krex forces have been mapping our defensive positions and resource locations. They've paid particular attention to our most profitable worlds. The next image was even more concerning. Tilani Federation ships have been conducting detailed scans of our agricultural worlds. They've identified which planets produce the most food and support the largest populations. Representative Park leaned forward. Are you saying they've been planning to take our worlds? The evidence suggests that several council species have been preparing for exactly this moment, Admiral Torres replied. They've studied our weaknesses, mapped our resources, and identified our most valuable territories. Dr. Elizabeth Hayes, the Chief Science Officer, stood up. There's more. Our intelligence indicates that alien technological advancement has been stagnating for centuries. Most council species haven't developed any truly new technologies in over 500 years. She activated another display showing comparative technological progress charts. Human advancement in the past 50 years exceeds what most alien species achieved in their entire histories. They're not just nervous about our expansion, they're terrified of being left behind. The implications hit the assembly like a shockwave. The aliens weren't trying to maintain galactic stability, they were trying to prevent human civilization from surpassing them entirely. So what are our options? Asked Senator Webb. President Chen activated another display, this one showing detailed plans and preparations. We have 3 choices. First, we accept their terms and become a client species forever dependent on alien approval. Boos and angry shouts filled the hall. The idea of human submission was clearly unacceptable to everyone present. Second, Chen continued, we reject their terms and fight. Our intelligence suggests we could hold our own against any single alien species, but fighting the entire council would be suicide. What's the third option? Representative Park asked, though her expression suggested she already suspected. Admiral Torres stood again. Complete withdrawal from the Galactic Council and relocation to the Galactic Rim territories. The hall fell silent. The Galactic Rim was considered uninhabitable by every known species. It was a region of space dominated by dark matter storms, gravitational anomalies, and the complete absence of habitable worlds. Dr. Hayes addressed the silence. Our scientists have been studying the Rim territories for decades. What aliens consider uninhabitable, we consider challenging but manageable. The dark matter storms that terrify other species could actually provide us with new energy sources. Admiral Torres activated a new display, showing massive construction projects. For the past 15 years, we've been building generation ships in hidden shipyards. Ships designed specifically for Rim territory exploration and colonization. The images showed vessels unlike anything in the galaxy. They were massive, self-sufficient cities capable of supporting millions of people. More importantly, they were designed to thrive in the dangerous conditions that other species feared. How many ships? Senator Webb asked quietly. Enough to evacuate every human world if necessary, Torres replied. We call it Operation Great Exodus. Every human colony has evacuation plans. Every civilian population has been secretly prepared for potential relocation. Representative Park stared at the images in amazement. You've been planning this for 15 years? President Chen nodded. Earth's government learned early that our rapid growth would eventually threaten other species. We hoped for peaceful coexistence, but we prepared for the worst. The Rim territories offer us something the inner galaxy cannot, Dr. Hayes explained. Freedom to develop without limitation, space to grow without stepping on alien territory, and most importantly, challenges that will push human evolution to new levels. Admiral Torres brought up the final set of images. Our scout ships have already identified suitable locations for new colonies. The Rim territories are vast and unexplored. We could build a human civilization out there that makes our current achievements look small. The assembly absorbed this information in stunned silence. They had come here expecting to debate a difficult political decision. Instead, they were being offered a chance to start human civilization over again, free from alien interference. There are risks, President Chen acknowledged. The Rim territories are dangerous. Some colonies might fail. Some ships might be lost. But the alternative is accepting permanent status as a lesser species in someone else's galaxy. Senator Webb stood up. What about the humans who want to stay? Not everyone will want to leave everything behind. Participation is voluntary, Admiral Torres assured him. But our intelligence suggests that staying under council rule will become increasingly difficult. The restrictions they've proposed are just the beginning. Representative Park raised another concern. What about our current trade relationships? Our economic connections to the galaxy? Dr. Hayes answered this time. We've been developing closed-loop economic systems for our rim colonies. We'll be completely self-sufficient within 5 years. In fact, our economic independence might be what concerns the aliens most. The debate that followed lasted for hours. Representatives asked detailed questions about logistics, risks, and consequences. But as the discussion continued, a consensus began to emerge. The aliens had made a critical error in their calculations. They assumed humans would choose security over freedom. They believed that threatening isolation would force humanity to accept any terms offered. Instead, they had provided humanity with the perfect excuse to do what they had been preparing to do anyway: leave the limitations of galactic civilization behind and forge their own destiny among the stars. When President Chen called for the final vote, the result was unanimous. Humanity would reject the Council's demands and begin the Great Exodus. As the session ended, representatives began making urgent communication calls to their homeworlds. Within hours, every human colony would begin evacuation preparations. The aliens thought they were forcing humanity to choose between submission and destruction. What they had actually done was give humanity permission to transcend the limitations that had held them back. In 72 hours, Ambassador Elena Vasquez would return to the Council with humanity's answer. And the galaxy would never be the same. The Galactic Council chamber buzzed with anticipation as Ambassador Elena Vasquez returned to the central podium. High Counselor Thrix leaned back in his seat, a satisfied expression on his scaled face. The other alien representatives whispered among themselves, already discussing how to divide the human territories. Ambassador Vasquez, Thrix announced formally, has humanity reached a decision regarding the Council's requirements? Elena stood straight and looked directly at the High Counselor. We have. Humanity respectfully declines your terms and hereby withdraws from the Galactic Council. For a moment, complete silence filled the chamber. Then Thrix began to laugh, a harsh barking sound that echoed off the walls. Soon other aliens joined in, creating a chorus of different laughter sounds from across the galaxy. Withdraw? Thrix gasped between laughs. Foolish humans. You cannot survive outside the protection of galactic civilization. Your species will be begging to return within a year. The Talani representative's 6 eyes gleamed with amusement. Perhaps sooner. The galaxy is dangerous for those without friends. Elena remained calm as the laughter gradually died down. Humanity understands the risks of our decision. We are prepared to face them. Prepared? The Vorth Collective's crystal speaker chimed mockingly. No species has ever survived isolation from the Council. You will face pirates, hostile environments, and countless unknown dangers. Your colonies will fail one by one. We shall see, Elena replied simply. Then she delivered the statement that had been approved by the Global Parliament. Effective immediately, all human worlds are declaring independence from galactic authority. Human ships will begin departing Council space within the next standard day. The laughter stopped abruptly. Counselor Thrix leaned forward, his amusement replaced by confusion. Departing to where? There is nowhere in the galaxy beyond Council influence. The rim territories, Elena answered. The chamber erupted in shocked gasps and clicking sounds. Even the ancient Vorth Collective pulsed with surprise. The galactic rim was considered a death zone by every known species. Impossible, the Talani representative stammered. The rim territories are uninhabitable. The dark matter storms alone would destroy any ship that entered them. Elena smiled for the first time since entering the chamber. Perhaps they are uninhabitable for your species. Humans have different capabilities. She turned and walked away without another word, leaving the Council chamber in chaos. Behind her, aliens shouted questions and demands, but she didn't look back. Humanity had made its choice. Within hours, the first reports began reaching the Council. Human cargo ships were leaving every major trade hub simultaneously. Massive vessels that had never been seen before emerged from hidden locations throughout human space. The Krex Empire's military observers sent increasingly frantic reports. The humans have ships we've never cataloged. Generation ships capable of supporting millions. Where did they build them? More disturbing news followed. Human colonies weren't being abandoned. They were being evacuated with military precision. Entire planetary populations were being loaded onto transport ships in organized waves. Critical infrastructure was being dismantled and taken along. The Talani Federation's trade monitors were the first to realize the scope of what was happening. They're taking everything, the lead monitor reported to his superiors. Manufacturing equipment, medical facilities, agricultural systems. They're stripping every useful piece of technology from their worlds. But the most shocking discovery came from the Vorth Collective's long-range sensors. The human fleet is not fleeing randomly. They are following predetermined routes toward the galactic rim. This evacuation has been planned for years. High Counselor Thrix called an emergency session as more reports flooded in. The chamber was no longer filled with confident laughter. Aliens spoke in worried whispers as they tried to understand what they were witnessing. How many ships? Thrix demanded of his intelligence chief. Conservative estimates suggest over 10,000 vessels of various sizes. Some of their generation ships are larger than our biggest space stations. The numbers were staggering. Humanity had somehow built an entire secret fleet without any alien intelligence service detecting it. What about their military ships? Asked the Talani representative. That's the most disturbing part, the intelligence chief replied. We haven't seen any traditional warships. But their civilian vessels have energy signatures unlike anything in our databases. They may have developed entirely new technologies. The Vorth Collective speaker chimed with concern. Our deep space sensors are detecting the first human ships entering rim territory. They should be experiencing severe system failures by now. But the expected reports of human ships being destroyed by dark matter storms never came. Instead, the sensors showed something impossible. Human vessels not just surviving in the rim territories, but apparently thriving. The energy readings make no sense, reported the chief sensor technician. Their ships seem to be using the dark matter storms as a power source. How is that possible? Days passed and the reports grew more disturbing. Entire human worlds went dark as their populations completed evacuation. But these weren't the chaotic flights of refugees. They were organized, systematic relocations. The Krex Empire sent scout ships to investigate abandoned human colonies. What they found challenged everything they thought they knew about human capabilities. The colonies weren't just abandoned, the scout captain reported. They were methodically dismantled. The humans took everything useful and left nothing behind. But more importantly, we found evidence of technologies we didn't know they possessed. What kind of technologies? Thrix demanded. Terraforming equipment that could reshape a planet's atmosphere in months instead of centuries. Mining systems that could extract resources from previously unusable sources. And construction techniques that allowed them to build in environments we consider impossible. The implications were terrifying. If humans could build in impossible environments, then the rim territories might not be the death sentence everyone assumed. More weeks passed, and long-range sensors brought increasingly impossible news from the rim territories. Human ships weren't just surviving, they were establishing permanent settlements. Energy signatures indicated massive construction projects beginning in areas where no known species could exist. The Vorth Collective, with their advanced sensors, provided the most detailed reports. The humans are not struggling in the rim territories. They appear to be adapting to conditions that would kill our people instantly. More concerning, they seem to be developing new technologies at an accelerated rate. What do you mean? Thrix asked, though he dreaded the answer. Their energy signatures are changing, evolving, whatever. They're building out there is unlike anything in our technological databases. The council chamber fell silent as the full implications sank in. They had expected to watch humanity destroy itself through foolish pride. Instead, they were witnessing something that defied all their assumptions about what was possible. The humans hadn't fled to the rim territories to hide. They had gone there to transform into something the galaxy had never seen before. High Counselor Thrix stared at the sensor readings showing impossible human achievements in the death zone of the galaxy. For the first time in his long career, he felt a chill of genuine fear. The Council had tried to contain humanity's growth and limit their potential. Instead, they had driven them to a place where there were no limits at all. What have we done? He whispered to himself. But the question echoed through the minds of every alien in the chamber. 6 months after the human exodus, Trade Director Xylax of the Talani Federation stared at his displays in growing panic. The numbers made no sense. Galactic commerce was collapsing at a rate that should have been impossible. How bad is it? High Counselor Thrix asked during the emergency economic session. Xylax's 6 eyes darted nervously between his data screens. 17 major trade routes have failed completely. Food production is down 40% across 12 sectors. Industrial output has dropped by more than half in regions that depended on human-designed systems. The Krex Empire's military representative, General Korax, slammed his 4 fists on the table. My fleet is falling apart. Human engineers designed the navigation systems for 60% of our ships. Without their maintenance protocols, we're losing vessels every day. Similar reports came from across the galaxy. The Vorth Collective's ancient cities were experiencing power failures as human-designed energy distribution networks broke down. Agricultural worlds that had relied on human farming techniques were facing crop failures. Medical centers couldn't treat diseases that had been easily curable with human-developed medicines. We never realized how dependent we had become, admitted Counselor Hirak of the Centauri Union. Human innovations were integrated into everything we do. Dr. Melek, the Council's chief scientist, presented the most disturbing findings. Our analysis shows that human technological contributions account for approximately 70% of all meaningful innovations in the galaxy over the past century. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. While alien species had focused on maintaining established systems and following traditional methods, humans had been quietly revolutionizing galactic civilization. Their medical research alone saved billions of lives, Dr. Melek continued. Without human pharmaceutical development, we're seeing the return of diseases that hadn't killed anyone in centuries. The Talani Federation was hit particularly hard. Their vast food distribution network, which fed hundreds of worlds, had been designed and maintained by human engineers. As the systems failed, famine began spreading across their territory. We need to contact them, Federation leader Vorth declared. Surely they can be convinced to provide technical assistance during this crisis. But attempts to communicate with the human Exodus fleet met with silence. The Rim territories seem to have swallowed humanity completely, cutting off all contact with the inner galaxy. Our long-range sensors are still tracking their activities, reported Sensor Chief Quinn. But the readings are becoming increasingly strange. Thrix looked up from the economic disaster reports. Strange how? The energy signatures from human settlements in the Rim territories don't match any known technology. They're building things we can't identify using methods we don't understand. Even more concerning were the reports from the galaxy's outer regions. Automated monitoring stations near the Rim territories were detecting massive construction projects. The scale suggested that humans were building structures larger than anything ever attempted by galactic civilization. How large? General Korax demanded. Some appear to be the size of small moons, Quinn replied hesitantly. But that's impossible. No species has the technology to build on that scale. The economic collapse accelerated as more human-dependent systems failed. The Krex Empire's military advantage evaporated as their enhanced warships became unreliable. Trade between sectors ground to a halt as shipping networks designed by human logisticians fell apart. Worst of all were the pirates. Human colonial security forces had been keeping large areas of space safe through their rapid response capabilities and advanced tracking systems. Without human patrols, criminal organizations quickly moved to fill the vacuum. Pirate activity has increased by 300%. General Korax reported grimly. Our forces can't cover the same territory that human security teams managed with a fraction of our numbers. The Talani Federation's situation became desperate as food riots broke out on 17 worlds. Their leaders sent increasingly frantic messages toward the Rim territories, begging for any kind of assistance. The responses, when they came, were not what anyone expected. A single message reached the Council from somewhere in the Rim territories. It contained no video, just an audio transmission with a voice that was recognizably human but somehow different. "This is Dr. Elena Vasquez, speaking for the human collective," the voice said. The formal title caused confusion among the alien listeners. What was the human collective? "We have received your requests for assistance," the voice continued. "We understand that our departure has created difficulties for galactic civilization." Hope flickered through the council chamber. Perhaps the humans could be reasoned with after all. However, the voice went on, "We cannot provide the technical support you require using traditional methods. The technologies you depend on are no longer compatible with what we have become." Confusion replaced hope. What did what we have become mean? "We are willing to offer humanitarian assistance to prevent further loss of life," the transmission concluded. "Supply ships will be dispatched to the most affected areas," but we cannot return to the limitations of our previous existence. The transmission ended, leaving the Council with more questions than answers. What had happened to humanity in the Rim territories? How had they changed? The first human supply ship arrived at a Talani Federation world facing severe famine. But the vessel that emerged from hyperspace was unlike any human ship in the galactic databases. It was massive, larger than the biggest alien dreadnoughts, but it moved with impossible grace. Its hull seemed to bend light around it, creating optical illusions that hurt to look at directly. Most disturbing of all, sensors couldn't get clear readings on its composition or energy source. The ship didn't land or dock at any facility. Instead, it somehow transported vast quantities of food and medical supplies directly to the planet's surface, using a technology no alien scientist could explain. How did they do that? Trade Director Xylax asked his technical staff. "We don't know," came the helpless reply. "Our sensors detected a brief energy spike. Then the supplies simply appeared in designated distribution centers. No beams, no transporters, no cargo shuttles. The materials just materialized." Similar supply ships appeared at other crisis points throughout the galaxy. Each one delivered desperately needed aid, but in ways that defied understanding. The humans were clearly trying to help, but they were using technologies that seemed to operate outside known physical laws. The final shock came from the Vorth Collective's deep space sensors. They detected something emerging from the Rim territories that challenged every assumption about what was possible. Energy readings suggest a structure the size of a small star, Sensor Chief Quinn reported in a shaking voice. "But it's moving. And it's artificial." The implications were staggering. In less than a year, humanity had progressed from being refugees fleeing to the Rim territories to builders of star-sized constructions that could move through space. High Counselor Thrix stared at the sensor data, his scales pale with shock. The Council had driven humanity away to prevent them from becoming too powerful. Instead, they had forced human evolution beyond anything anyone had imagined possible. "What have we created?" he whispered, echoing his question from months before. But now the answer was becoming terrifyingly clear. They had created something that could no longer be called human in any traditional sense. And it was still growing stronger. 1 year after the human exodus, the Galactic Council faced its darkest hour. Half the member species were dealing with economic collapse, and several civilizations teetered on the edge of complete breakdown. The emergency session called by High Counselor Thrix had drawn representatives from every surviving government. "We have no choice," Thrix announced to the desperate assembly. "We must send a diplomatic mission to the Rim territories. Humanity is our only hope for survival." The decision was unanimous. A massive fleet consisting of the finest diplomatic vessels from 12 different species departed for the Galactic Rim. Admiral Korax commanded the military escort, while Ambassador Xylith of the Talani Federation led the diplomatic team. The journey to the Rim territories took 3 weeks. As they approached the boundary where space became unstable, the fleet's sensors began detecting impossible readings. "Energy signatures ahead," reported the sensor officer. "But they don't match any known technology." What they found defied every law of physics the aliens understood. The Rim territories, once empty space filled with dangerous storms, now contained structures that hurt to look at. Massive constructions that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, ships that phased in and out of visible reality, cities that floated in space without any apparent means of support. "By the ancient stars," Admiral Korax whispered as he stared at the displays. "What are we looking at?" Before anyone could answer, their ship suddenly stopped. Not slowed down or powered down, simply stopped, as if space itself had decided they should go no further. Then she appeared. A figure materialized on the bridge of the lead diplomatic vessel. Not through any transporters or airlocks, but simply becoming present where she hadn't been before. The aliens recognized her as human, but she was clearly something more. Dr. Maria Vasquez, daughter of the former Earth ambassador, stood before them. But she existed partially outside normal space-time, her form shifting between solid matter and something that seemed made of organized energy. "Welcome to the Rim territories," she said, her voice speaking directly into their minds rather than through their translation systems. "I am Maria Vasquez, speaking for the human collective." Ambassador Xylith stepped forward, trying to maintain diplomatic protocol despite his terror. Dr. Vasquez, the Galactic Council seeks an audience with humanity's leaders. Our civilizations are failing without human technological support. Maria smiled, and the expression contained both compassion and something that might have been pity. I understand your situation. We monitored the collapse of intergalactic systems and provided what aid we could. The supply ships, Admiral Korak said. That was you? A small gesture, Maria replied. We tried to prevent unnecessary suffering, but the technologies you require for full recovery are no longer compatible with your current level of existence. The aliens exchanged confused glances. Current level of existence? What do you mean? Maria gestured, and suddenly the alien delegates could see beyond their ships' hulls. The rim territories stretched before them in impossible glory. Cities that existed in folded space, ships that swam through dimensions like fish through water, humans who had become beings of pure thought, directing the construction of structures that spanned multiple realities. When you forced us to leave, Maria explained, you actually freed us from the limitations that had held us back. The rim territories aren't just dangerous, they're transformative. The dark matter storms, the gravitational anomalies, the exotic energies, they're evolutionary pressures that pushed us beyond our original form. She paused, allowing the aliens to absorb what they were seeing. Your species developed technology to make difficult environments comfortable. We developed ourselves to thrive in impossible environments. Ambassador Xylith's voice shook as he spoke. But you're still human. We are what humanity was always meant to become, Maria replied. In the inner galaxy, surrounded by species that feared change, we were forced to limit ourselves. Here, with no boundaries except those imposed by physical law itself, we discovered our true potential. The implications horrified the alien delegates. Humanity hadn't just survived the rim territories. They had used them as a catalyst for transcendence. Can you help us? Admiral Korax asked desperately. Our civilizations are dying. Maria's expression grew sad. We have been helping. The supply runs, the medical aid, the assistance with your most critical system failures. That was us trying to ease your transition. Transition to what? Sileth demanded. To a galaxy without the dependency you developed on human innovation, Maria explained. For centuries, your species relied on established methods and traditional approaches. When humans began providing rapid solutions to your problems, you became dependent on our capabilities instead of developing your own. She gestured again, and the aliens could see vast databases of information. We've prepared detailed instructions for rebuilding your technologies using methods compatible with your current capabilities. But you'll need to do the work yourselves. What about trade? Economic cooperation? The old alliances? Xylith pleaded. Maria shook her head gently. The gap between our capabilities has become too large. We exist partially outside normal space-time now. Our technologies operate on principles your species cannot safely use. To demonstrate, she extended her hand toward a nearby asteroid. The rock simply ceased to exist. Its matter converted directly into energy that was absorbed into the vast human constructions. We tried to warn you, Maria said, her voice carrying ancient sadness. My mother stood before your council and tried to find a compromise. But you insisted on limiting human potential to make yourselves feel secure. The alien delegates realized the horrible truth. The council hadn't just driven away a useful ally. They had exiled the one species capable of guiding galactic civilization to the next level of existence. So, this is it? Admiral Korax asked. You're abandoning us completely? We're not abandoning you, Maria corrected. We're giving you the chance to grow into your own potential. The technologies we're providing will help you rebuild. Your species have capabilities you've never explored because you were content to rely on human solutions. She began to fade as the conversation concluded. The rim territories taught us that evolution requires pressure. Comfort and security create stagnation. Perhaps this crisis will push your species to discoveries you never would have made under our protection. Will we ever see you again? Xylith asked desperately. Maria's final words echoed in their minds as she disappeared completely. When your species have evolved enough to survive what we've become, we'll be waiting among the stars. The alien fleet returned to the inner galaxy with data archives that could help rebuild their civilizations, but they also carried the knowledge that they were now alone in a way no species had ever been alone before. The humans were still out there in the rim territories, growing stronger and more incomprehensible with each passing day. They watched over the galaxy like distant gods, occasionally providing aid when truly needed, but no longer bound by the limitations of mortal existence. High Counselor Thrix read the diplomatic mission's report in his private chambers. The Council had tried to prevent humanity from becoming too powerful, and had instead forced them to become something beyond power itself. As he looked up at the stars, Thrix wondered if any of the other species would ever evolve enough to join humanity among the cosmic forces that shaped reality itself, or if they were doomed to remain forever in the shadow of what they had lost through their own fear. In the Rim territories, impossible constructions continued to grow. Humanity had found their destiny not as conquerors of the galaxy, but as gardeners of existence itself. And they were still becoming something more.